There's a heavy-duty logic that a former maker of boilers and radiators in the pre-aviation age would go on to construct an armored patrol aircraft for Germany in World War I. Hugo Junkers and his team created the metal-skinned J1 with a Roman numeral 1 that was also confusingly known as the J4 at the company. Hugo Junkers was an early advocate of metal airframes, and his use of steel and later corrugated aluminum for skin surfaces during World War I set a design rationale that survived into the 1930s. Germany requested Junkers to design an armored two-seat aircraft for close support missions where small arms ground fire could be particularly hazardous. For the J1, rolled out in 1917, Junkers employed smooth chrome-nickel steel sheet 5 millimeters thick, about 3/16 of an inch, to create an armored capsule that protected the engine and crew from ground fire. Everything from behind the propeller hub to the rear seat was encased in the armor. From a steel bulkhead behind the gunner observer, a tube frame formed the aft fuselage. As designed, the aft fuselage was fabric covered. Late production J1s used corrugated skin to wrap this section. The top and bottom wings of the sesquiplane J1 were supported by struts emanating from the fuselage and between the wings near the body, but otherwise they were essentially cantilever designs that rode above and slightly below the fuselage. A keel on the bottom of the fuselage provided additional contact for the lower wing. The wings were sheathed in corrugated aluminum skin that concealed a series of aluminum tube upper and lower spars with riveted diagonal bracing providing a sturdy truss. Power for the Junkers J1 was supplied by a 200 horsepower Benz Bz IV 6-cylinder inline water-cooled engine. Hinged steel armor panels protected the engine that rode slightly above the fuselage to provide the desired thrust line for the propeller. Early J1s used an exhaust manifold that arced over the top wing. Later aircraft in the series used a straight vertical exhaust manifold. In an era when wood, wire, and fabric were the norm for airframes, the metal J1 was a standout. It has been said the only wooden airframe part on this Junkers was the tail skid, crafted from ash. Metal main landing gear struts supported a cross axle that used elastic shock cord to tame landing impact. Metal cranks and push rods linked the controls to the cockpit. The Junkers team believed this would be more combat survivable than traditional control wires. The Junkers J1 weighed in empty at 3,885 pounds, just 115 pounds shy of 2 tons. Loaded, the aircraft relied on its Benz engine to propel more than 4,785 pounds. That engine could tease about 96 miles per hour out of the J1 at best. It took more than a half hour to reach 6,560 feet, although that may have been of less use in its career as a patrol and resupply aircraft for the German Army. The pilot had 2 fixed forward-firing Spandau machine guns at his disposal, and the rear cockpit had 1 flexible mount parabellum machine gun for defense. An attempt at placing 2 fixed machine guns firing toward the ground proved ineffective due to aiming and speed issues. The Junkers J1 spanned 52.5 feet. Length was just over 29 feet 10 inches. The armored Junkers reached frontline units toward the end of 1917. The Radical J1 gained affection for the rugged protection it offered. Assigned the task of determining the ever-ebbing and flowing front lines of combat, crews in J1s flew at low altitude. The backseater sometimes had access to radio with which he could communicate to a command post at the rear of the fighting. At other times he used message bags airdropped where needed. German infantry used cloth on the ground or burning signals to indicate their positions to the J1 crew. As the war dragged on into 1918, in instances where isolated German infantry pockets could not be resupplied by ground, the durable Junkers J1s airdropped supplies and ammunition to them. The Junkers J1 could be shipped by road or by rail. This weary-looking example, inspected by a bicycle-riding kilted soldier, is probably an Allied war trophy. Of 227 J1s built, only 1 basic airframe survives, in rugged shape, in the Canada Aviation and Space Museum in Ottawa. It was a war trophy sent to Canada in 1919. A restored fuselage of another example is in the Italian Air Force Museum. I'm Fred Johnson for Airailimages. Thank you for watching.